Yellowjackets has stormed back onto our screens over the weekend, and over 2 million people streamed the second season premiere, Friends, Romans, and Countrymen. Today, we're going to be going over things you may have missed, some early theories, and things to keep an eye on throughout season 2. So let's get into it. So starting out, before we even dive into the episode, I wanted to briefly talk about one of the promotional images or promotional posters that we got for season 2 of Yellowjackets. There was a poster put out last week on social media that most people have probably seen by now, and if there was something familiar about this, it was probably this. So if you actually trace over the top of the image where everything is kind of laid out and all of the characters are, it actually shows the symbol from the show. And I think that's super cool. It's a nice little Easter egg and a little nod to all those people who are really looking deep when it comes to Yellowjackets. First up, I wanted to discuss the 1998 timeline. Last season, I did make a prediction that I thought that we were going to get a post-rescue timeline. I thought they were going to do the same kind of thing they did with Lost. So it was really cool when I saw this in one of the trailers. Well, that's what it seemed like in the trailer anyway. And then when we had it confirmed in this episode, I was super excited. It may be that we're getting more post-rescue timeline. That's what I thought initially. And then when I watched the episode, since it was in episode 1, I thought, oh, maybe this is like the Pit Girl and Antler Queen scene where each premiere they give us like a different timeline scene. But it does seem, based on some social media activity from the cast, that we are going to get more post-rescue scenes in the second episode. One of the things that the post-rescue 98 scene was able to clarify was that we are definitely in the Canadian wilderness, because they did, the reporters are talking about how off the flight path they were. And then we also see that the police for where the girls are, they're in Seattle. That's where they're taking off to presumably go back to New Jersey. And they're all wearing search and rescue kind of hoodies and hats and things like that. And also to point out, when it comes to the 98 timeline, is there notably did not seem to be a Coach Ben, and I did not see any sign of a baby, but it was pretty chaotic, and the way they shot it, they could have been hiding things from us. That's totally a possibility. So when Misty is perusing Reddit and keeping an eye out for anything mentioning Adam, she clocks a theory written by Walter, played by Elijah Wood, a character that will be introduced next episode. Well, if you take a look at the rest of the threads, one seems to mention Misty herself. The thread references the Parsippany poisoner, and as someone who lived in New Jersey for several years, I can tell you that there is actually a township in New Jersey called Parsippany Troy Hills Township. And although Yellowjackets is set in a fictional town in New Jersey, most people believe it's set in like central North Jersey, and Parsippany is within relative distance to where most people believe the show is set. So I do think that they could be referring to Misty as this poisoner, because we know Misty did poison someone last season, and it was referenced in the previously on Yellowjackets. We know that Misty poisoned and unalived Jessica Roberts, the fixer that Ty hired to look into everyone. And although they did not clear up what happened to Jessica Roberts in this first episode, I do believe this is going to come back somehow, and it would be really interesting if this was a little buried Easter egg that they end up referencing later on down the road in other episodes. But Jessica Roberts is actually passed away, because the creators and writers did confirm this when they were asked about it over the hiatus. Next up, I wanted to discuss the scene where Nat is returning from hunting, and she gives Coach Ben the map that she's been making, and they attach it to this bigger map where they have kind of mapped out the 7 miles radius around the cabin. A few things to point out in this scene, the first being when Nat hands Coach Ben the paper, he has it turned over and the paper is actually a civics history prep test. The camera hangs onto this for just a second too long that I was like, this maybe means something. So I really zoomed and enhanced to see what was going on this paper, and the test seemed to be asking how many terms a president can serve, and also what happens if there's a tie when voting in the Senate. Now, this could be nothing. Let's establish that. But this did make me think about a lot of theories that people have discussed where they believe that there is going to be two groups. And if you remember, the very original synopsis for Yellowjackets in season 1 did talk about warring factions. So they did mention two groups. And wouldn't it be interesting if they were dividing the groups and there was some sort of vote or some sort of, tiebreaker? So I just thought there might be something there, or it could just be totally random. We also know there is going to be a de facto leader in the Antler Queen. So this could be their president that could be serving out a certain number of terms. Welcome my cat to the video. And then they could end up having to swap out the Antler Queen. I know that some people have mentioned that they think there's multiple ones. I do think it is just Lottie, but there could be something else going on there about how they've kind of had the rankings and people in charge and everything that they have going on by the time they're rescued. I did also have a moment where I was thinking, oh, Nat hands it to him. And if you remember that scene in season 1 when Shauna and Ty are in the car and they acknowledge that they wouldn't be there if it wasn't for Nat. And it's like maybe Nat is some sort of tiebreaker or lays down the law in some way. It seemed like there may be something there with all of that was going on. The map also looks like it has that tree stump marked on it, and it really looks to me like it says lightning struck tree. It could absolutely say something else, but that's what it looked like to me. Also, I can totally see if they have this map and we know they have all those carvings on trees in the woods. So if they mapped out where all those carvings would, I can imagine them being able to draw the symbol in the same way that I did with the poster. Like it, you can draw it over the top of the map. So that could be something too. And I'm sure the cabin would fit into some very important place in the symbol as well. Speaking of the markers, I did think that another moment that they hung the camera just a second too long was when Nat was tying the red kind of piece of fabric to the tree as a marker. I was thinking, oh, maybe this comes back in some sort of way, like how she's marked the place out, if there's someone else out there, or there is, they break up the groups, whatever it is, that this is some way that they're able to find them. But also, I did then go to thinking about how the symbols are carved into the tree. And we know the no-eyed man, like obviously he has no eyes, so he can't see. And I was thinking it would be so much easier to spray paint or even just paint or draw the symbols on the tree, and the carving, like you would be able to feel that. I know somebody walking around outside having to go up and feel every tree would be, super difficult, and trying to navigate outside, especially if it was wintertime there. But it did just make me think, like, it takes a lot longer to carve something into a tree than to just spray paint or paint. But maybe they didn't have access to paint or spray paint or anything like that. And I do think it is probably most likely a creative decision by the show, but it is something to just keep an eye on. And finally, there was something in one of the trailers, the Coming Up This Season on Yellowjackets trailer, that I thought was pretty interesting, and I can literally hear the conversation in my head before it's even happened, because there is a very quick scene where we can see that Nat is at Lottie's compound cult area, and they're walking around outside at what looks like to be beehives. And I can totally picture some sort of conversation here, Lottie telling Nat about the bees and their natural enemy, the Yellowjackets. I have mentioned this before, but I find the name of the show so fitting, and obviously it was chosen for a very particular reason, because these TV Yellowjackets seem to be acting exactly like real Yellowjackets. This is an article titled Yellowjackets, a look at opportunistic raiders of honeybee hives. Yellowjackets do target honeybees as they hang around the entrance of a hive waiting to ambush and pick off individual bees as they come and go. They quickly dismember a bee after killing it, eat some of the parts, and carrying a portion back to feed their own larvae in their own nest. That does seem to me what our TV Yellowjackets will be doing, as that's pretty reminiscent to the Pit Girl scene from last season. This was the first episode, so things will only get better from here as we get more episodes under our belt and therefore more material to work with to create our theories and predictions just like we did last season. So make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss out on any Yellowjackets content. I will have my videos up a lot earlier than this, but just last week with the L Word news happening, I had to put that out on Friday. So I will be hoping to get my Yellowjackets videos up straight away after they air. So make sure you're subscribed, follow me on social media, check out my second channel that talks about fraud, cults, and scams. My merch store, everything is linked down in the description box. And as always, make sure to stay safe, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.